Yes.
It's Mr. Ben, Chair. Yes, I'm here, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you very much. We have only 3 members. We have to wait for some few minutes to allow other members to come in for us to proceed with our meeting. We have we have 4 members. In terms of the rules, we can proceed because we were just receiving presentations. I'll take this opportunity to welcome Minister and the department. We are meeting here to receive the presentation on the annual report of the department. In the morning, we've met with the planning and monitoring and evaluation and the Auditor General. We have now going to receive the responses from the department in terms of the outcome of the annual report. Before we proceed, do we have any apology, Ben? Mr. Ben?
Chairperson, no apologies that I have received for this meeting, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you. I will now hand it over to Minister to lead us in the presentation.
Good afternoon, Chairperson. Good afternoon, honorable members. Thank you very much for this engagement this afternoon as we are to present our annual performance report as the department, but also reflections in the portfolio and our entities. Chairperson, if you allow me, I'm going to make some few remarks that relates both to the department's performance, the entity's performance, and also the some of the reflections in terms of the challenges we have with the provinces and what we are doing about it. I do understand that honorable members would have interacted with the Auditor General's team in terms of our audit outcome, and they will be able to, it will be reflected even in what we are doing about those issues. But I must say to honorable members, I did give my assurance to the Auditor General team in terms of addressing quite a number of issues that have raised with us, and I'll touch to that as we present today. Maybe let me first, Chair, as we come here, you would note that we are appearing before the Portfolio Committee without a Director General of the department. We have an acting Director General, who is Ms. Ngongo, who has been appointed until the matter is resolved, finalized. But where we are is that the President has taken a decision to transfer the Mr. Mbulelo Changana out of the Department of Human Settlements and to be placed in another place. But currently, as we see it, he still draws a salary from us. And until that process of his placement is resolved by the Presidency and DPSA, we are not able to appoint a Director General. We have requested the speeding of this matter so that we can be able to close that gap, is the first issue. In terms of the DDG post, we are here today with Director Generals that are permanent, which are 3, which is Deputy Director General Ngongo, Deputy Director General Lesolonyane, and Deputy Director General, or appointed Deputy Director General Jenny. And in other positions, we had acting. We have advertised, we have done interviews on 3 posts, and we have approached Cabinet for appointments. There's been some delays in consents in some others, and we have now started the process with the 2 remaining Deputy Director General positions. So we do believe, Chair, our target is to say all Deputy Director Generals positions must be filled before we go on recess this year, so that we can be able to ensure there is stability in the department. With the boards, Chair, we have appointed all the boards in terms of our entities. In terms of the executive, we currently have a full-time appointed person at CISOS as the Chief Ombud. We currently have senior executives at Hsdg have been appointed. The CEO, you note that for a long time it has been acting. We have appointed a CEO, we have appointed a CFO, and we do have a COO currently. So in terms of those 3 that Minister as well is involved, they have been appointed, and we've urged the entities to ensure that there's filling of vacancies in others. In NHBRC, we have appointed a CEO who was permanent, who was appointed or employed as CFO. With that process, then the board has commenced the process of appointing a CFO. So the stabilization as well there is coming all right. At SHRA, it took longer, which I was not happy about, I must say. I thought by this time we'd have appointed a CEO, but I do have on my desk the recommendation from SHRA, which is going through Cabinet. We are waiting for the final, what we call vetting. Once I receive the vetting report, I will submit a CAB memo to Cabinet so that we can be able to, Cabinet can approve the appointment of a SHRA CEO. You note that the board of NHFC was appointed later than other boards where we appointed them on the 1st of November. So they have started as well. I've signed off their advert. They've started the process of recruitment. We're hoping there as well that before we go on recess, we'll have a CEO there. That's what we are intending to do. In public PPRA, you note, Chair, we have an appointed CEO, though currently there is a process that the board has involved in. The CEO is currently on suspension. There is an acting CEO. I have urged the board to ensure that they can conclude the matter speedily so that we can ensure the stability as well then. So in terms of our entities and the department, we are paying attention to ensuring that we stabilize in terms of appointed people so that we don't continue to have acting people with no authority that they cannot be able to do the work. Chairperson, I must say that Stabilization of the portfolio has not been easy. Improving of performance has not been easy. There are still quite a number of areas that remain of a concern. Performance in terms of spending financially is not where we are expecting it to be. When you look at the performance of our grants, you would notice that there continues to be rollovers. There's continued to be money that we surrender to the revenue fund. This is for various reasons. You know, this portfolio as well is a concurrent function that we transfer money to the provinces, we sign business plans, we do evaluation, monitoring, but there's been weaknesses in terms of that work and we are tightening it up. Now, part of the issue where we've seen the weaknesses is around the DORA conditions in terms of our grant conditions. I wrote to the Minister of Finance requesting a review of the DORA framework and also the conditionality to give us more authority in terms of ensuring that there's spending but control, in terms of assuring that there's performance and work, because we did pick up the weaknesses. That work has commenced. This acting CFO has been working together with the National Treasury. They've done a workshop in that regard to be able to start paying attention and in the areas that we are concerned about. The other area of performance is around when we deal with disasters. One of the problems is that, one, in terms of where the money is sitting, it sits in provinces. You find that the other province run out of what is allocated as emergency grant within the Hsdg, then it becomes a bit of a challenge. Now, what we have proposed is to centralize the emergency grant so that if one province has a challenge, we're able to channel all the resources there. But the other intervention that we're bringing is to be able to say, can we build capacity in the department specifically to deal with disasters? Because the lessons learned out of KZN taught us we are inadequate in terms of human capital, but also in terms of our processes. And we are utilizing that as a lesson learned for us to be able to respond. For example, we would have put people together with the provincial government, would have put people in the halls to say, within a particular time, we would have removed them. We set targets, those targets have passed. We had to go back to government, to cabinet, to request a review, to say, and also appear, write to Minister of Finance to say, can we utilize this emergency grant to actually secure buildings that we can take people who are in the halls into those buildings as a temporary mechanism while we are building them houses. So it's lessons that we have learned, but there are also good stories. For example, the introduction of vouchers has enabled us, for example, on the partially damaged houses, that we were able to utilize the voucher system to be able to give to the families, and they were able to repair their houses quicker. That innovation saw us being able to assist us in responding. We're also looking at now going forward with the alternative technology. If we are able to utilize the resources that we have to build quicker with the alternative technology that it can do within 3 days, within the available quantum. So this is work that we are doing. We've asked Free State to try and test it and see if this can be done, specifically with the incident in Jagersfontein, as we were working and responding to the disaster. So I'm acknowledging upfront, honorable members, that in responding to the disasters, the situation, how we have responded as government, and the time it took, it's not ideal, and actually, it has actually compromised the lives of people. And we can say, not really like in terms of putting them at risk, so that somebody doesn't say they can go lay charges against me. It's more, and that I've said that this, but it's more around ensuring that we can provide quality services. The other innovation that we tried in protecting the funds learning from your COVID-19 relief for sources was the introduction of real-time audit. It's a good thing we don't have money wasted or theft of money or corruption. But what it has done, it delayed in terms of the turnaround time. So when I was speaking to the Auditor General team, I was telling them, if you were to ask me, it's good in terms of accounting, but it's bad for service delivery. Would I support it going forward? I hope there can be something that brings us to the middle. Because why I mean this is that in addition to the number of days that would have taken to have, for example, the approvals in terms of procurement, you had, I can safely say, added 30 days additional, or even more, because there is no time frame to say if somebody's sitting with an application, for example, you do the specs, they must be approved by someone. And it goes to the provincial treasury, they do that, and the provincial office of the premier. Then it comes back. You get the spec approved, you advertise. After advertising, you do the process, you wait to send it back to them. They then look at it, if it's compliant again, and then they send it. So it's taking more. It put more people in the value chain. It just added the bureaucracy. And that's why I'm saying, if you are to ask me about the future, I would really not support it unless it's more service delivery orientated as well, because it has left a lot of citizens unhappy. Chairperson, in terms of performance areas, I do believe that going forward, we do need to pay attention, the balancing, and this is what we have started to do, the balancing between service delivery and the money that has been spent. So there are areas, for example, what we have started to do is that at the beginning of, like, as we conclude the financial year, for example, now, when the business plans are done, we also have a MINMEC that focuses on the business plan to look at how they are structured, and we interrogate them. It's no longer a question whereby officials will just have a business plan, they sit in it and all that. We do think that as well, there's need for us to tighten, because, for example, we are saying for projects to be on the business plan, they need to have a procurement plan in place. But what I have learned now when we're looking at this annual report, it clearly tells you that some of the project made it into the business plan without the procurement process in place. So those are the lessons learned that we are trying to close the gap. But again, for example, in terms of municipalities, previously, it would be national without the provinces, between national and municipalities that sign business plans, and then without the provinces. Now, what we have started to do is to bring them into the discussion so that we can look at it and say, what are the issues that we need to do? As I conclude on this matter, I don't want to take long, we'll answer to the question. What I've said to the entities of the Department of Human Settlements is that none of us, as a department and as entities, do we have an inherent right to exist. Now, we must justify our existence. And I've said this to all the entities. If they can improve performance, if they can improve service delivery, if they can add value in terms of the delivery of services to the people of South Africa, they don't have the right to exist. And I'll be the first one as the minister to call for their closure. Now, that's where we say a no-nonsense approach around non-performance has been adopted. For example, I've asked NHFC to explain to me, because last year, I've upfront told them there shouldn't be bonuses paid because they did not perform. And then I saw in the report that they have actually paid bonuses. So I've asked for an explanation. Consequence management will be exercised. Similarly to this financial year, I've said, as long as we sit at 50%, because there can be individuals at executive level that says to us, we are deserving of a bonus when the performance is Madoda score 50%. And when we do not see the impact. So it's those things that we're putting in place, Chairperson and members, that we are trying to ensure that there's accountability in the portfolio, but there's transparency in how we do things. We have, again, Chairperson and members of the committee, approached SIU. I will be engaging full details. We've submitted almost around 3 separate requests to SIU to look at matters that I felt as the minister required us to look into. Now, those issues varies, but for example, you pick up even in the newspapers, some of them SIU have initiated, where a 200 million will go without a service delivery. And then in other areas, you hear of escalation that are sent, whistleblower sending in terms of land purchases. So those issues, and also the issue of the unfinished projects, which was like a file that was available for me. I took it to SIU. This we will engage with SIU. I don't want to be preemptive. They will do their work in assessing if there's a need for a proclamation. They will advise, and therefore we do. And this again, Chair, as I committed even last year when I arrived here, is that we are going to ensure that we do not create a conducive environment for corruption as the department, but more for me as the leader of this portfolio. And I remain committed to that. As I said previously, accountability, transparency, but consequence management is something that we are committed to doing. And I think even in relation to the wasteful expenditure in the department, the Acting Director General will explain the work together with the CFO. They will explain the work that is being done already in those areas so that we can ensure that we correct things. So Chairperson, that's my opening remarks. As we arrive here as the department to account for what we have committed to you and the people of South Africa that will do as Department of Human Settlements. And through you, I would like to hand over to the Director General to be able to present. I must indicate, Chair, our Deputy Minister has a family bereavement. I don't see her joining. I know that she's busy with that. She's not able to, has not been able to attend to work this week. So I would like to submit her apology if it's not read. I didn't hear anyone reading it. So sincere apologies for not mentioning it at the beginning. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Minister, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, colleagues. I will be presenting the annual performance of the department for the financial year 2021-22. If I could be assisted in the flighting of the presentation. Can we go to slide number 3? The purpose of slide number 3. Thank you. The purpose is to present the audited annual department performance report for the year ending 31st March 2022. Next slide. This slide summarizes the highlights of the financial year. We had planned for 49 integrated implementation programs for the priority development areas prepared for 47, and we have achieved 49. So in terms of the priority development areas, this is the area where we are seeking to achieve the integrated human settlements development, and also we seek to achieve the human settlements spatial transformation and consolidation of our targets to the goals of that of the National Development Plan, and also for National Spatial Development Framework, among other things. The second part is that as a department, we planned for the unqualified audit opinion with no material findings. We achieved that. However, Chairperson, I will indicate in terms of the findings that we have, but the main thing is that they were not material. Another highlight is that over the years, we have been battling in terms of getting an unqualified opinion in terms of our non-financial performance. And under the financial year under review, we did get an unqualified opinion. We have been battling to get to achieve this target. So we have done it this time. Minister has alluded to the stabilization of the human settlements entities. So I'm not going to repeat that part. Can we go to the next slide? This slide seeks to present our 3-year audit outcome. Honorable Chairperson, you will see that here we have been consistently under unqualified with findings. we are stagnant in this regard, and we are working towards the clean audit. I must also indicate that, Chairperson, our financial information continues to be clean with no findings. The next slide. This slide is a summary of the audit outcome in different areas. I've spoken to the quality of submitted financial statements, which is clean. The quality of submitted performance information, there is improvement, as I have alluded to, that we receive an unqualified audit opinion in this area. Supply chain, we regressed in this area. I will speak to the details later on. The financial health of the organization is pretty much healthy. Human resources management, this is an area of concern for us because we remain stagnant. I must indicate, Chairperson, that in this area for a long time, we did not have the Chief Director Human Resources Management, and we have since appointed Ms. Tusi in this position. She is 1 month in the department, and already we are seeing the improvements. In terms of information technology, this is also the area of concern that we have not been able to address in terms of the IT controls that have not been adequately designed. We do have the ICT committees that we have also sought the expertise of independent chairperson in order for the department to improve in this area. Next slide. Chairperson, I've spoken to the issue of the unqualified audit opinion and with no material findings. Can we go to the next slide? The next slide. Chairperson, I am going to speak here in terms of the irregular expenditure to the value of 2.3 million. And this figure is broken down as follows. There is an irregular expenditure of 1.5 million in relation to our ICT license and procurement, which was done without following the supply chain prescripts. And I must indicate, Chairperson, that we have got our internal audit assessment, and also we have gone through to labor. And we do have the outcome of what went wrong. The investigation there is concluded, and we just need now to implement the consequence management in this regard, which will be done soon. Another area is an amount of 562,000. This is in relation to the advertisement for the internship. We had planned to receive 10,000 applications in terms of the internship. However, we received responses to the tune of 30,000. So obviously here, our budget allocation was affected, which means the service provider in receiving 30,000 when only 10,000 was planned for, obviously we had to pay more. Hence the amount of 562. What we should have done here, we should have asked for deviation upfront. But I must indicate here that, Chairperson, we do have the records that indicate that 30,000 applications were received vis-a-vis the planned target of 10,000. This also is an indication of the high levels of unemployment in our youth, in this country. The next one is the payment that was made before services were rendered. The amount in question here is 12 million. Chairperson, let me give just a brief background on this, that all departments, we received the CAP memo that was indicating that we should use our media services, we should use the GCIS, which is a state-owned department. And also in that, we had the National Treasury regulations that also emphasize the use of GCIS. But also in relation to that, we also were expected to comply with the National Treasury regulation also that indicates that no advance payments needs to be done without any contractual obligation. So the shortcoming that we had here was that we did not have the contractual obligation. Let me indicate, Chairperson, that the 12 million that was not used, which was already with GCIS, has since been returned to the department in April this year. We have since addressed the issue of the contractual obligation with the GCIS. The next slide, Chairperson, I did speak to it in terms of the ICT governance controls. Can we go to the next slide? This slide talks to the compliance. This is the supply chain process. As the dashboard indicated that we have regressed in this area. We were expected to publicize the tenders that have been approved in the e-tender portal after the successful bidder had been awarded. And in this case, this is the compliance area that we did not comply, which is in terms of the national treasury regulations. And also in terms of the successful bidders that we have appointed, we were supposed also to provide the copies of the contracts and also forward those to the DTI, also in terms of the assessment of the local content. This is the compliance areas that we did not comply with. However, Chairperson, there was no money that was lost in this process. This slide talks to our programs. I will not speak to it. It's standard every quarter. Can we go to slide number 18? Slide number 18 indicates that as a department, we achieved 58%, and we did not achieve 8% of our targets, and 34% of our targets, we partially achieved them. Honorable Chairperson, I must say we're not happy with our performance, as most of the targets that we did not achieve, they form part of our core business, and we will need to come up to come up with the implementation of the turnaround strategy. The next slide. This slide is just the indication of how we performed through the quarters. The next slide. I will skip this slide not to talk to all the bars, except to highlight the two programs that program 4, we achieved 86% of our targets, which is affordable housing, followed by 83% in terms of rental and social housing. And these are also part of our core programs in the sector. The next slide, Chairperson, I've spoken to it, unqualified audit opinion with no material findings. This is the area, Chairperson, that we did not achieve. This is in terms of the parliamentary questions response. We have to comply to the turnaround time of 10 days, and we missed the turnaround 10 days turnaround rule. I must indicate here, Chairperson, that the reason for this is that most of the information that we have to respond to in terms of parliamentary questions, we have to rely on our stakeholders, such as municipalities and the provincial departments. So sometimes there are hiccups in getting the responses quicker, and then we do not comply with the 10 days turnaround rule. So we are engaging with our stakeholders at provincial and metropolitan and municipalities to actually address how best we can come up with a better turnaround strategy so that we can comply. Another area, Chairperson, is the invoices that we need to pay after 30 days turnaround time. And this is also another area that we did not perform very well. We had a number of reasons here, including that sometimes we do have the system errors and also some level of negligence in terms of our officials in the department and service providers. This area, we have also requested the assessment of our internal audit to look into it so that we will be in a better position of taking a decision in terms of who should be held liable. The next slide. The next slide, Chairperson, it talks to our internal audit plan. This is the internal audit plan that gets approved by our internal audit in the department. We fell short in our targets by 4%, and we did not achieve those targets. And the reason for the deviation, Chairperson, is stated there that we were not able to, informal settlements upgrading program, the audit there was not completed timelessly due to the delays in finalizing of the project planning stage. This is also the lesson that we'll have to learn in terms of timing our projects. In terms of the next two targets, anti-fraud and corruption, we did achieve our targets as planned for, and also in terms of the risk management plan. Next slide. The implementation of the HR plan, Chairperson, we only achieved 76% and 24% was not achieved. I did indicate, Chairperson, in the dashboard earlier on that this is an area of our concern in terms of the HR area, and also have indicated that we have since appointed the Chief Director who will assist us in this area. The next slide. Communication strategy was implemented successfully. Next slide. Chairperson, in terms of our target in the implementation programs for the priority development areas, I have spoken to the overachievement of those prepared areas. But I must also indicate, Chairperson, that in terms of the implementation, the investment in specific areas, we did not achieve all the targets here. The first one is the 30% of human settlements grants that we had planned to invest in. We only achieved 15%. Chairperson, if I may just go to summarize the PDA's performance, go to slide number 28. Slide number 28, still in the same area. We had planned for the 30% of land acquired within the priority development areas to be rezoned, and this target was not achieved. And also, Chairperson, let me indicate now to address all the areas, the targets that we did not achieve in terms of the priority development areas and what we are doing in terms of addressing that. Firstly, Chairperson, in terms of the rezoning of the land, we are having some challenges in terms of the turnaround time with our key stakeholders, which are the municipalities. So where we are now is that we have engaged the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, because they also sit with the deeds registers. And they have also indicated that we can use certain provisions of SPLUMA to assist us in fast-tracking the rezoning process. Chairperson, let me indicate that next week there will be a meeting between the Department of Agriculture and ourselves in order to craft the way forward of how best we can tackle this area. And also in terms of the land parcels that require to be rezoned, we have agreed that we will submit all the land parcels to them and also engage the municipalities in terms of the fast tracking of the rezoning. Also, as part of the agreement is that the Department of Human Settlements will also be given an opportunity to be part of the municipal tribunals that deal with the land applications. We hope that, Chairperson, this new development will assist us in tackling the rezoning area. The next slide. The next slide, Chairperson, we had projected to have the project's readiness metrics implemented in all the provinces. This target was achieved. The target that we did not achieve was in terms of the project readiness metrics in all the metros, and these targets was partially met. And Chairperson, the corrective measure there is that we need to get the assessment reports that must be completed once the final Hsdg business plans are received in the next financial year. The target on the revitalization of distressed mining communities implemented in 6 provinces was achieved. Why only the 6 provinces is because not all the provinces are declared as mining towns. The next slide. Chairperson, this has been also another area that we have not been able to perform in terms of the title deeds. I will consolidate all the planned targets around the title deeds restoration program. As a sector, we had planned for the targets that we had to register to the amount of 38,528. This is the figure, which includes the pre-94, post-94 until the current. And what we achieved was the 22,479, which is 58% of the target that we had planned for. And Chairperson, we must also indicate that we agree that if we continue in this pace, we are unlikely to achieve the MTSF target. And we know the implications thereof. Let me also indicate, Chairperson, that again, also we have been engaging with the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, where they will be assisting us as they see these registers in order to assist us in terms of the verification of the deeds, data sets, and also to fast track the delivery thereof. Chairperson, okay, thank you. Let's go to slide number 33. Slide number 33 is just a demonstration of the performance of the title deeds per province, and that goes on up until slide number 36. May I please go to slide number 37? Slide number 37, this is a delivery of our PNG houses where we have planned for 52,405, and we have only delivered 28,000 houses that have not been delivered. The reasons for the deviation is that some of our delivery agents, including provinces, did not provide the information that we require. Honorable Chairperson, you will note that at National Department, we are not at the implementation level. So we also rely heavily on our colleagues at the provincial level. Corrective action, in addition to us sending the letters of compliance, Chairperson, this is an area that we have to improve in terms of our planning and in terms of the alignment of our targets, so that we make sure that all our plans are in place and our targets are the same. And also the issue of the procurement plan that also Minister alluded to, that all those areas are sorted out in advance before the start of the following financial year. On the service side, Chairperson, we also did not achieve our target there. We planned for 39,000, only 37,000 was achieved. And it's the same approach that we are going to implement in order to improve in this area. As we know, Honorable Chairperson, that also we are fast tracking the implementation of the service sites, as it has become very clear that not everybody is expecting a house from government. Other members of the communities are able to build their own houses. only if they could be provided with service sites. The next slide. Slide number 38 to 39 is also the demonstration of the provincial delivery. Excuse me. May I have slide number 14? Slide number 40 is that we planned for 2 research reports in terms of the agri-villages and rainwater harvesting. Chairperson, human settlements and water resources, they are linked, as water also is a source of life. So we need also to come up with some measures in terms of how we can harvest rainwater, and so that it can assist the members of the communities. Only one report was achieved because Chairperson, we did not meet the timelines in appointing the service providers that will assist us in this area. Let me also further indicate, Chairperson, that this appointment of this panel, which is referred to as POLET, has since been appointed. The next slide. The next slide talks to the 40% of budget allocated to state-owned entities by designated groups, and this is part of the economic transformation. We did not meet this target specifically because, Chairperson, also as we are monitoring, we need to receive all the information from the metros and from the provincial departments. In this case, when we received the information from the city of Johannesburg, then it was established that the information declared was not complete and verified. In this area, what we need to know, we need to have all the specific names of the entity, and also we must verify the ownership in terms of the registration, so that we are sure that this is the entity that is owned by, for example, women-owned, youth-owned, and owned by persons with disability. The proactive measure and corrective measure, Chairperson, that we have included is that this information is linked to the information that gets submitted on the performance of our grants. So we have added this part to the information that will also be provided on the performance of the grants, because this area was sitting somewhere else and not with the grants management unit. So in that manner, then we will be able then to get all the information, and then there will be one entry point and one exit point as well. In terms of the monitoring of the projects that are implemented under Hsdg, USDG, and title deeds restoration, Chairperson, USDG and Hsdg, we did achieve this target, Chairperson. 100% on the entities programs performance monitored, we also achieved this target. Next slide. Slide number 42. Oh, yes, 43. Okay, on this slide, Chairperson, in terms of the capacity assessment, we only achieved 85% for the reasons that we only finished our assessment right at the end of the quarter. This also is a shortcoming in our operations, Chairperson. Let me indicate also that in this area, in this target, as you will see that this target cuts across all the programs, consequence management has already taken place in this area, and also as linked now to the annual performance, it will also be implemented as required. The next slide. The next slide, Chairperson, I will elevate the next target, which talks to the policy on social facilitation developed. We have achieved this target. The significance of this, Chairperson, is that in our work area, we do need the services of social facilitators in order to ease the communication with our communities, especially also the informal settlements space, so that we get the buy-in of the members being represented. The next slide. The next slide, Chairperson, we have achieved all the targets in terms of our monitoring. Let me not repeat that. And slide number 43, also the target on capacity, it does cut across. If I can go to slide number 47. Number 47 talks to the informal settlements upgraded to phase 3. And this is also the MTSF targets that we have not done very well in terms of the MTSF. We are expected to have upgraded informal settlements to phase 3 of 1,500. And we are not doing very well here, Chairperson, as well. We did not achieve this target. However, let me indicate, Chairperson, that as at the end of the financial year, we had 300 informal settlements in phase 3, and 24,671 service sites had already been concluded. And in terms of phase 1 and phase 2, we had in total 982 informal settlements in that area. What we need to do is to ensure that we fast track the upgrading of informal settlements with all the permanent services installed, which is level 3 as required. The next slide is a demonstration of the provincial status. If I can go to slide number 51. Slide number 51, Chair, I will elevate the policy framework on rental housing that has been developed, which is also part of our core business that needs to be elevated. Next slide. Entities, performance and capacity, these are the targets that cuts across. I'm not going to repeat them. If I can go to slide number 54, Chairperson. Slide number 54 here is the performance in terms of the assessment of the FLIS subsidies that were dispersed. That is what we had planned to do. And this is also the area that we have not been doing very well in terms of the MTSF target. And now we are also getting the assistance from the NHFC to try and fast track the delivery, but we are not there yet, Chairperson. But the assessment and the disbursements was achieved, but now we need to link this process with the actual delivery and the benefits to those who qualify. If I can go to slide number 57, which is in capacity, which I will not conclude. Chairperson, just one mistake. If I can just make an addition in terms of our irregular expenditure. Of 2.3 million. I only covered 2. There's just one that I left out, which will make the total of 2.3, is the irregular expenditure to the amount of 237,000. This is the irregular expenditure that occurred long time ago, where positions were filled in the department without being advertised. So now where we are, Chairperson, is that those who were implicated in this process are no longer with the department. So what we will do, we will seek for condonation from the national Treasury. Thank you, Chairperson. With your permission, Acting CFO will take us through the financials.
Thanks, Acting DG. Honorable Minister, Honorable Chairperson, and Honorable members of the Human Settlements Portfolio Committee, colleagues, good afternoon. I am going to take the Portfolio Committee on the performance of the financials as of the 31st of March 2022. The total vote that we opened the year with is 31.7 billion, and the expenditure that we incurred is 30.9 billion, which is equivalent to 98. And the portion that was not spent is 720. And there below the bottom slide, it gives the breakdown on the economic classification. So when we look on the economic classification, we are able to pick up the compensation of employees. The total allocation was 410.9 million,
we had a variance of 51.6 million. The reason being only 87% was spent. The reason being that there were some of the critical posts that were not filled. And then when you look at the goods and services, the 496.7 million, 176.9 was not spent, which is equivalent to 64%. The spending was 64% in that regard. Honorable Chairperson and members, when you look at the breakdown of the goods and services, it's safer to say, rather than is an under expenditure, maybe we should look at it that due to the COVID, there is a way that we had to adopt in doing business. And there are special line items that even National Treasury were expecting to see the savings. For example, when you look at travel and subsistence as a department, we have saved in that regard because due to the introduction of the COVID, we have adopted new ways of doing business or new ways of holding meetings, whereby instead of traveling, we ended up doing a lot of virtual meetings. So that's why we are having a savings on the goods and services. And as well, there was a saving as well on the office suppliers, because due to the introduction of the 50% return to work, 75% return to work until the end of the financial year, we had a saving in that regard. So instead of saying we have underspent on our goods and services, budget, it is safer, Honorable Chairperson and members, that it is a saving in our side, because the majority of those line items is because of the new way of doing business that the department had adopted. And then on the transfers and subsidies, that's where our grants together with the transfers to entities are sitting. You can see that the allocation thereof is 30.7 billion and the expenditure is 474. So on the 720, the majority of the unspent or of the unspent fund are sitting under transfers and subsidies. And I will explain this when I come to the slide that talks to the transfers and subsidies. And Chairperson, on the payments of capital assets, can you please go to the first slide? On the payments of capital asset as well, we have made a saving, Honorable Chairperson, of 17 million. The reason being, instead of procuring a lot of laptops, what we did as a department, we opted for the data contract, because most of the cell phone service providers, they were issuing the data contracts together with the laptops. So instead of procuring a lot of laptops to enable our officials to work from home, we as a department adopted or revised our cell phone policy, whereby we ended up having the data contract or the data allowance that we were giving to most of the employees opted for it, because it was taking care of, instead of procuring the laptops, we ended up procuring the data allowances, and then that it gave us a savings on a lot of capital assets. The next slide as well, it gives a synopsis that out of the 31.7 billion, the operational budget is 934, which is even 2.7% of the total allocation, and is broken down into our programs, and we are sitting at 74%. So the operational budget consists of goods and services, and it consists as well on the compensation of employees. Hence, we are sitting at 74%. Can you go to the next slide? Honorable Chairperson and members, the slide talks to the grants and the transfer payments as of the 31st of March 2022. On the total grants to provinces, we have transferred the Human Settlement Development Grant. We are sitting with a variance of 0. We have transferred the upgrading of Informal Settlements Partnership Grant. We are sitting at 0. These are Schedule 5 grants. These are conditional grants, which are Schedule 7. However, the Provincial Emergency Housing Grant is a Schedule 7 grant, whereby it is released upon an application when there is a disaster or a housing emergency. Hence, you can see that only 10 million has been transferred, and the variance there is 301. By the end of the financial year, we did not have a lot of disasters for that financial year. However, most of the disasters that hit the KZN and the Eastern Cape, they happened on the new financial year, on the first month of the new financial year. So the Provincial Emergency Housing Grant, as we close our financial year, we had 301 that was not requested because there were no significant disasters in the year under review. The bottom part talks to the total grants of that are transferred to the municipalities. We know about the urban settlements and the upgrading of informal settlements partnership grant. By the end of our financial year, which is the 31st of March, which is the third quarter of the metropolitan municipalities, we had transferred all of the grants that was due to them. However, the municipal emergency housing grant is the same schedule as the provincial emergency housing grant. And by the 31st of March, only 66 had been transferred to the municipalities and 101 was not transferred. Now, when you look at our entities, we have transferred all the grants that was due to our entities except the 51.5 million to Hsdg. This 51.5 million was the funds that were put aside for the Sea Point building that was earmarked to be procured by the Housing Development Agency. When we closed the year, the Housing Development Agency had not submitted the necessary documents so that we can transfer the funds. However, we have submitted the 51 as a rollover request from National Treasury. When you look at the bottom part, it talks to the departmental transfers whereby our scholarship program is sitting. You can see that the budget for the year was 8.2 million. However, 5.2 was not spent. I think, Chairperson, the biggest under expenditure in that regard is because of the fees must fall. We know that after the fees must fall, there was an introduction of the NFSAS. So most of the students, instead of coming to the department to request for funding on this scholarship program, which is a bursary for the degree in human settlements, most of the students opted for the NFSAS. And when you look at the UN Habitat, we've put aside 17.1 million for our subscription. However, when we closed the year, 14.9 million was not transferred for the UN Habitat. The reason being there were delays in the admin processes in relation to the international agreements because we had to renew our agreements with the UN Habitat. So when we closed the year, however, on the new financial year, we did pay our subscription with the UN Habitat. As for the Cities Alliance, the 720, this transaction, honorable members and chair, was effected during the last month of the financial year. However, due to the complex of the foreign transactions, it was rejected and then it was transferred again during the next financial year. And our household, that's where the people who are going on pension, the leave pay and everything we are paying out of. Can you go to the next slide? The next slide, Honorable Chairperson and members, is giving a synopsis of the individual grants that we are transferring together with the expenditures that we have reported, together with the under expenditures. And I think that Minister at the beginning of the meeting, she did indicate about this slide. So for the Human Settlement Development Grant, we as a national department, we have transferred everything, hence that's that previous slide. However, now we are drilling down into the performance of the provinces. Honorable Chairperson and members, we can see that the reported expenditure is 13.2 billion out of the 13.8 billion. So when we closed the financial year, 592 was not spent. However, all of them that did not spend, they have requested the rollovers from National Treasury. So out of the 592, we can see that Limpopo was sitting at 253 and Northwest. So these two are the biggest contributors when it comes to the over and under expenditure, the amount that was not spent as of end of the financial year. So after National Treasury have met and looked at the rollovers that have been requested, Honorable Chairperson and members, we can see that the Northwest, out of the 240, 209 was not approved. When you look at the reasons for rejecting the rollovers, the reasons are due to not committing. Hence, this financial year, we are now going, when we are looking at the business plan, we are requesting the provinces to submit even the procurement plan. And even now, when we are requesting them to submit the recovery plans, we request them to submit the procurement plan. The reason behind the procurement plan is to make sure that as a national department, we satisfy ourselves that we do not lose the money back to the fiscus due to not committing. When you look at Limpopo, they had 253 that was not spent. 189 was approved as a rollover, and once the Minister of Finance has announced the midterm budget speech, we will adjust the new financial year with the 315. However, the money that will revert back to the revenue fund is 277 million. And I know that most of the question that has been asked, or what the members are going to ask, or that members are thinking about, is what is the consequence management that we are doing as a national department when it comes to the provinces when they are not spending their allocation. However, we are relying on the Division of the Revenue Act, as the minister has alluded earlier on. When you look at section 17, 18, and 19, it talks about when there is, or when National Treasury and the transferring officer, they anticipate that there's going to be a vast under expenditure. They can start by withholding the transfers, or they can request National Treasury to stop a portion and reallocate. So for this financial year, this is the process that we are embarking on. We have started as soon as after 5 months, we are starting to re-look closely together with the procurement plan of all the provinces. So we have requested them to submit their recovery plans so that we can drill down to look if they are committed. We don't want to be in the same situation when it comes to the new financial year. Can you please go to the next slide? The next slide is the same as the Hsdg, however, is the Informal Settlements Upgrading Partnership Grant. We have transferred 3.9 billion. However, the expenditure was not satisfactory again. You can see that, Honorable Chairperson and members, that on this grant as well, 407 was not spent. National Treasury have finalized with the rollover approvals, 298 was approved as a rollover. And as well on this grant, again, we are going to lose 109 million back to the fiscus. So what we are doing on the Hsdg, Honorable Chairperson and members, the process that we have embarked on, we are still doing it. We are doing the same on the Informal Settlements Upgrading Partnership Grant, requesting the recovery plans and the procurement plans for the ones that are not spending. We are starting with those meetings this week. This morning, the team started with KZN, looking at the KZN grants and the recovery plans, if ever the province will be able to come out of the disaster and be able to implement the projects that they said they're going to implement. So we have started with the processes. We will come back end of the quarter to report how far we have gone. The next slide, it talks to the Provincial Emergency Housing Grant. As I said, that only 10.3 was transferred to the Free State. However, 6.2 is going to revert back to the revenue fund on the money that was transferred. However, for the year under review, there were adjustments that were made by National Treasury and the rollovers. You can see that KwaZulu-Natal, they had a rollover of 102, and then they've spent all of it. We can see that Mpumalanga, they had a rollover of 40.9 million, 20.7 was spent, and then, however, National Treasury has approved a rollover. However, when it comes to the Northern Cape, there was a rollover of a rollover. You can see that there was a rollover of 69 million, and that money had to revert back to the revenue fund because end of the financial year, this money was not committed. So National Treasury did not approve a rollover of a rollover, hence the money had to revert back to the revenue fund. The next slide talks to the grants that are transferred to the municipalities, the Urban Settlement Development Grant. So by end of our financial year, it was the third quarter of the municipalities because the financial year of the metros ends on the 30th of June. So when we close our books, the municipalities had 3 more months to spend the 3.3 billion that was not spent as of end of the financial year. And as well that with the municipalities, they are working on accrual basis of accounting. Even if they were given 3 months, they can still process the accruals until the 31st of August when they submit the financial year. So when we come to present our first quarter, which will be the last quarter of the municipalities, we will be able to present the actual expenditures on the Hsdg grant. However, for the year under review as of the 31st of March, we were sitting at 4.1 that was spent and 3.3 that was still to be spent by the municipalities on the Urban Settlement Development Grant. The next slide is the Informal Settlements Upgrading Partnership Grant. Is the same as the other one, but however, this one is a Schedule 5 grant. And we have transferred 3.9 billion. And as of end of the financial year, as of end of the financial year, 1.8 was spent. However, as I said, with the Hsdg, this was the third quarter for the metropolitan municipalities. They had 3 months to spend the remainder of the 2.1 billion. However, when we come back after the first quarter, when we're presenting the first quarter performance, we'll be able to present to the portfolio committee the performance as of the 12-month period for the metropolitan municipalities. The next slide, Honorable Chairperson, members, is talk to the municipal emergency housing grant. When we closed the year, we had 2 applications from Upongola municipality and the John Taulo. We have transferred 30, we have transferred 15 to Upongola, and then we have transferred 50.9 million for the John Taulo, and then they had also as well 3 months left for them to be able to spend the emergency housing grant. So that will be the end of my presentation. I'm going to request the acting DG to conclude. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of our areas of improvement, the emphasis is in terms of our integrated planning, budgeting, implementation, and reporting to ensure that we've got an aligned achievement, and also that achievement does translate to the MTSF targets and the sets of the APPs. The second layer also, which is in addition to the integrated planning, is in terms of the intersectoral collaboration and to ensure timeless availability of sector performance information for verification. And this also includes performance monitoring, reporting on the committed grants and standardized indicators, including also the 40% in terms of the designated groups. Efficiency all the times in terms of the 30 days payment of invoices and parliamentary questions. We need to enhance on that so that we can meet the 10 days turnaround in time. Chairperson, in conclusion, we recommend the portfolio committee to note the performance of the department for 2021-22 financial year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Acting DG, Minister, you want to close? Minister? Okay, can I then invite members to talk to the report? We have Honorable Mohotu, Honorable Bert Herod.
Sorry, Chair, I'm here.
Yes, I was saying you want to close the...
No need, Chair. I'll respond to the questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Honorable Mohotu, Honorable Heron, followed by Honorable Zeki, followed by Honorable Noluvuyo Tafeni, followed by Honorable Emma Powell. And then the last person, Honorable Chris Malimacha. In that order.
Thank you, Chairperson. And thanks for the presentation. My first question is, the department did not reach its 30% annual target of rezoning the PDAs. Can the department indicate the time frame of when they are going to reach their 30% target of rezoning PDAs? Again, in the presentation, it is stated that 5 awards with the value of 13 million was awarded, even though proper tender processes were not followed. Why did you not publish the tender on the tender portal, even though you have indicated that there was no money lost because the money has been returned to the department? Why did you deviate from following supply chain management processes in the first place. How is the department responding to the AG's comment around the lack of effective and appropriate steps taken to prevent irregular expenditure amounting to 2.3 million? How soon is the consequence management going to take place? Can you indicate the time frame thereof? And majority of the irregular expenditure was reportedly caused by the department not following the prescribed deviation processes. Why were the prescribed deviation processes not followed? Payments were made prior to services being rendered, contravening Treasury Regulation 15.10.1.2 subsection C. Non-compliance could have been avoided if compliance was properly reviewed and monitored. How is the department ensuring that compliance processes, how is the department ensuring that compliance improves in this regard? Regarding the financial performance for the year ending 31 March 2022, the department total expenditure was approximately 98% of the allocated fund. Why did the department fail to utilize the total budget allocated for the year ending 31st March 2022 in order to improve the poor living conditions of our people? Can the department elaborate on an error in the financial statements of the departments for the year ended 31st March 2022, which led to the department getting an unqualified audit opinion with emphasis on matters raised in the Auditor General audit report relating to restatements of corresponding figures for 31st March 2021. There is a growing backlog of housing for much of the low-income population in South Africa, estimated between 2.3 and 3.7 million households and growing at 178,000 annually. What effective plans does the department have in place to address the housing backlog? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Mogotu. As I've noted, honorable members, proceed to the second one.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to the department for the presentation. I think, Chairperson, before I get to the questions, I would like to make a comment about, I think what the presentation shows us is that the current housing program as it's designed is failing the people of South Africa. And I'm really concerned that we have this rigid housing program that is not responsive to the lived realities of people in South Africa and their earnings. And I think the housing program needs a complete overhaul. And I really would like us to be able as a committee to engage with the minister and the deputy minister and the team around that. Because I think what we're seeing is that the housing program is just simply not even coming close to meeting anything that's a realistic level of delivery in terms of the demand. And I think part of the problem is the rigid income thresholds, and we can see that in, for example, the FLISP program's underperformance. To have just 2,900 odd FLISP applications or affordable housing applications being approved is really worrying, because that's a market, an earning sector that is squeezed out of the private sector market, but doesn't qualify for the BNG product. So I'm concerned about the massive underdelivery in BNG, the Hsdg underperformance, which was perhaps slight, but the grossly underperforming USDG service sites performance. And so I think that we really need to think about how this housing program is working and if it's working at all. Then just some particular questions. The research that was done by the pilot, the first term of the pilot ended in October 2021. And as I understood it, it was to look at exactly what the question that I'm raising, whether the housing program and the housing framework needs an overhaul. So what was the outcome of that October 2021 team's work, over the team that ended in October 2021 after 3 years of being appointed? I assume that it's not the agri-villages and the exemption of holding costs research, because I understood that their mandate was much broader than that. And it would be really good if this committee could understand what was the outcome of that pilot, the first pilot team's work. Then with regards to the HDA's acquisition or attempted acquisition of the Sea Point building, that was in July 2021. So by the end of the financial year, that transfer had not taken place, if I understand the presentation correctly. But I just want to check, has that now been done and is that still being pursued? Then my final question is about the performance of the Hsdg as was presented to us, where 3 provinces report 100% spend. And I would like to ask if this is a realistic achievement. And I ask it because when I was still in the provincial legislature in the Western Cape, I asked a question around Hsdg performance there. And I see that the Western Cape was allocated 1.577 billion rand. And this presentation claims 100% performance. Now that 1.577 billion rand, in response to my question asked in the provincial legislature, should have delivered about 10,000 service sites and 9,536 houses. But what's reported in the presentation to us that was sent to us last night is that the Western Cape delivered only 3,061 service sites and 3,761 houses. So I don't know how they achieved 100% spend. And so I have the same questions for the other 2 provinces. Are those realistic numbers? And how does the Western Cape, for example, achieve 100% spend when it didn't reach the numbers that were linked to that spend? Thanks, House Chair. Thanks, Chairperson.
The followed Honorable
Nkosi, it's not me, Chair. Chairperson?
Yes, proceed, Honorable Member. It's supposed to be Tseki, but I don't see her here. Proceed.
The challenge of network. Okay, thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, under the fruitless and wasteful expenditure, under Program 2, Integrated Human Settlement and Development Planning, a contributing factor listed for underspending in the housing subsidy system budget was the State Information Technology Agency not providing the required service and as per the service level agreement. This reason was also presented in the 2019, 2020, and 2020, 2021 annual reports for underspending. Has the department engaged with SETA around this persistent challenge before? And if so, what was the outcomes? And also, the AG has raised concern both during 2019, 2020, and 2020 to 2021 about internal control deficiencies in the department. While the AG found no significant deficiencies in internal control in 2020 to 2021, it was noted that the department did not have sufficient monitoring control to ensure proper implementation of the overall process of planning and reporting is improved. And what are the reasons for the slow progress with the organizational structure of the department? This was raised in the previous financial year as well and appear to be a big factor for some of the targets not being met. How can intergovernmental relations be strengthened and cooperation and communication be improved amongst the different spheres of government? Chairperson, about 80% of the 90 staff leaving the establishment during 2020-2021 left due to their contract ending. What was the impact of this end? Were any of these staff members reappointed on a permanent basis? And how many positions were acting position by the end of 2021-2022 financial year? The last question, the cost of suspension for the period between 1 April 2020 and 31 March 2021 is listed as the 3.42 billion with an average of 730 days suspended. What are the circumstances around this case and why has it not been resolved? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Tafeni. Honorable Power.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you to the presenters for this. We noted earlier in the AG's presentation that overall 51% of targets were achieved, which is one of the lowest performance metrics that this department has had in some time, and that's starting off on an already low bar. Of great concern is the performance of the entities. Now, I know that that's not specifically under deliberation this afternoon, but we do have the Minister with us, and so I would like the Minister to comment on what steps she and her management team are taking to stabilize entities, further to the work that's been done in terms of the replacement of some of all of the boards, actually. But I mean, we've seen, for example, 71% of targets not achieved at the Hsdg, 63% not achieved at the NHFC, 85% not achieved at the PPRA, 67% not achieved at the EAAB. These are significant failings. And then, of course, in terms of irregular expenditure, we've seen again non-compliance in terms of the prevention of irregular, unauthorized and fruitless and wasteful expenditure being recorded at 6 of the 9 entities. And then the report, the annual report, as well as the AG this morning, notes that the department itself does not have sufficient monitoring controls to ensure the proper implementation of the overall process of planning and reporting. Now, we had in-depth discussions about this last year around management controls, and this is now a repeat finding. So how is the department responding to the AG's comments around the lack of effective and appropriate steps taken to prevent irregular expenditure? We note from the AG's earlier report that entities continue to transgress laws and regulations governing financial matters, and that there is a cumulative amount of 943 million rands worth of irregular expenditure, 83%, that's still not dealt with. Now, I raised this matter in terms of the entities simply for the Minister's comment, because whilst we do have the entities coming to present one by one, it's unlikely that the Minister will be able to attend each of those meetings. And often what we find when we speak to the entities themselves, and specifically the CEOs and the CFOs, is just a repeat of the same information we're given year after year. We've got new boards, so we'll place our hope and trust in them, but can the Minister please give us comments on further plans to stabilize the entities? Then the National Department underspent on its total budget by an amount of 720 million rand. So that's 2.2%, which is an increase against the 0.9% last year. What are the reasons for this increase? And then the Honourable Heron has already raised this matter, but we note that an amount of 51.5 million rand was not transferred, although it was set aside to fund the procurement of that Sea Point property in Cape Town. And we note that the transfer couldn't be made because the HDA failed to provide the required Section 38 PFMA certificate in order for the department to process the transfer. Can the department give us any reasons as to why the HDA failed to provide that certificate? And then why was a 51.3 million rand virement made after the adjustment budget estimate for the purchasing of the property in Cape Town to the HDA? I think all of us in this committee have got the same concerns with regards to the programs of the department, program 2 and 3 being the most important programs. And on program 2, the integrated human settlements planning, only 41.7% of targets were met, but the department spent 99.3% of their budget. So that's a red flag, of course. And once again, Chairperson and Honourable Minister and colleagues, it feels like Groundhog Day reading the analysis and this report, because the same issues that this committee has raised year after year after year, that we've been given guarantees before Parliament by the relevant officials and DGs and DDGs that these things are in the process of imminently being resolved, are not resolved. So I'll draw your attention, for example, to the PDAs, the Priority Development Area rezoning. We had lengthy discussions about this last year. Now, I understand that the National Department can only do so much in terms of zoning, and we've been given examples as to why this target continues not to be met, because municipalities don't do what they're supposed to, or they don't have the relevant systems and processes and capacity. Why does this PDA target continue to exist on the as a key performance indicator of the department if year after year it's not being met? 0% of land acquired within PDAs was rezoned. This is a 100% failure. We're seeing this happen year after year. Can the Acting Director General please give us information as to whether or not we can potentially take this KPA or KPI off the performance dashboard of the department until such time as some kind of IGR process with COGTA is instituted, and potentially the Department of Land Reform is instituted to actually deal with the capacity challenges that municipalities have, because this reflects on your dashboard as a non-performance. Then title deeds, we've spoken at length about title deeds, but I'd like to note our disappointment in terms of 199 achieved against a target of 5,393 for post-2014 title deeds. Again, 7,900 achieved against a target of 20,700 for post-94 deeds. We've spoken about indabas, plans, etc. Once again, the department can only do so much in terms of title deeds. We need an overhaul in terms of this, and can the acting DG and potentially also the minister and the relevant DDG give us information as to what the department's plans are to turn this around? Again, it's going to require capacitation at the municipal level. On the target of the BNG houses, 24,000 were delivered against a target of 52,400. So that's less than half. And one of the reasons that were given was that some provinces did not provide information. What is the reason that some provinces didn't provide information, and which provinces didn't provide information? The service sites, the service sites program is designed to cater for the needs of our poorest citizens. So it really is tragic to say that only 1,800 out of 39,600 service sites were completed using Hsdg. And I really don't think that there is any excuse for that, because where there's proper planning and project pipelines and proper engineers appointed and community engagement specialists, there's no excuse for any municipality or province to miss their targets on service sites. And this, it's dismal. On the Hsdg service sites component, 7.7% of sites were completed. So can we please understand what oversight mechanisms are available to the National Department to ensure that there's capacity building between provinces and municipalities? Chairperson, I think that at this juncture, it's important to bring the committee that's charged with oversight back to our deliberations of about 3 weeks ago, where we said that we actually need as a committee to have sessions with each of the municipalities where we can really in person scrutinize them. I know we've got their performance reports coming to us soon. But well, we were supposed to, but they've been taken off the agenda now, from what I can understand, due to the bill. But we really, as a committee, need to haul the provinces to Parliament to explain to us why they continue to underperform. And then 14 of the 130 informal settlements were upgraded to phase 3 of the informal settlements upgrading program. Now, the reason that was given on the analysis is that the majority of informal settlements are multi-year projects and are in different stages of completion, ranging from between 50 to 90%. So can I ask the Acting Director General, if this is the case, if it's simply not possible to reach this target, it is progress against last year. I think last year there was 0. We've now got 14. That is progress. But why do we have a target of 130 for the year if these are rolling targets? Can we not potentially revise that so the department doesn't have these poor performance or unmet targets at the end of their reporting period? And then to the CFO, I've just got some questions in terms of the grants. I note that, and please note that I'm framing this question in the context of the floods in KZN. So I note that only 10.49% of the informal settlements upgrading partnership grant to provinces, which was 408 million out of an available 3.8 billion rand, was spent. And then the only province requesting assistance with funding to respond to disasters, as noted in the analysis that was given to us, was the Free State province. The analysis goes on to say that the amount of 3.8 million rand was transferred to KwaZulu-Natal as a second tranche after the province successfully spent their first tranche. And that an amount of 66.47 million rand out of an available 167 million rand was transferred from the municipal emergency housing grant, of which 9.4 million rand was spent. So in light of the disaster around the floods, I'd like clarity. We're told that the only province to request assistance with funding to respond to disasters was the Free State province. My understanding is that KZN also requested assistance. My understanding from previous presentations is also that KZN received money from both the municipal and the provincial emergency housing grant. And then in terms of the underspending on the informal settlements upgrading partnership grant to provinces, what was the reason that that money couldn't be freed up and allocated to fund some of these disasters? I'm not going to go into questions on the floods themselves and the department's responses. There is an ad hoc committee dealing with that. And then one last question. Can we please get details on the informal settlements, the UISP capacity assembly program not being implemented? There's lengthy explanations given on various metrics around this, but whoever the DDG for this particular program is, can we please have an explanation as exactly what this program seeks to achieve and where the department is falling short in terms of meeting its targets? And then my last question is directed to the Minister. I understand that there are human resources and potentially legal challenges. So I do understand that caution may need to be given in answering this question, but I, as a member of this committee charged with your oversight, would like for you to provide us with some material reasons as to why you requested the Director General to be reallocated elsewhere, and if the ongoing underperformance of this department can in part be attributed to the executive management team, and whether there is any consequence management other than the Director General's removal from the department that is being instituted. And please note that I do understand that that will need to be answered with kid gloves, but any information on consequence management would be appreciated. Thank you, Chairperson.
Honorable Butas, you are back. The floor is yours.
My battery was locked in someone's car. I'm not at home. Just 2 or 3 questions, Chair. One is the 3 billion that is transferred to municipalities, on whether it will be exhausted or committed by the coming three months. And if possible, it may not be today, but what convinces us that it will be committed or be used? The other one is the 5-year strategic plan shows that would build 300,000 houses. DME have reflected that we are only at 154, so we are still at half. Whereas on the other side, the budget, it's getting consumed and finished within the year. An example is for this year, we spend 98%, but the outcomes are not reflecting that percentage. The worst performing was the title deeds. Can we have a concrete plan on the title deeds? Minister, to be honest, now I want to indicate I'm losing confidence on us winning the battles on title deeds. Our 5-year term will be finished. We should know that we are putting risk to the owners of those houses if we don't give them title deeds. Because anyone, in terms of the current state of affairs of criminality in our country, people take over other people's houses. And I think that, to me, this becomes an indictment on me, on whether I'm building people's houses or I'm giving people's houses away to criminals. So the risk factor in us not giving people their title deeds is very high. In particular on those houses that were built before 1994, they are worse. I've got more than 10 examples that I can show family challenges on that. In Soweto, I think last week, it was reported that a sibling evicted a lady of more than 75 years of age. These are realities. And when you look, you'll find that title deed was an issue in that. I may not have facts, but if you can investigate deeper, you'll find that title deeds, it's centered around the unscrupulous way of getting these title deeds as well. So I would want to get confidence from the department, because currently I'm definitely losing confidence, Minister. Build our confidence for us to see that what we meant to do is going to happen. Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you very much, President. Sorry.
Honorable Malmaza.
Thank you, Chair. Afternoon, Minister, afternoon, colleagues. Let me start by pointing out that one must bear in mind that here we are dealing with the legacy of the apartheid regime that was meant to ensure that other races don't get shelter, they don't get a place called home. And obviously, when you deal with that, there will be those who will remain to be known as the beneficiary of that particular outgone government. Like in the Western Cape, where you will find that Tafelberg had a very good land that's supposed to go to the need. instead, they decided to sell it to private developers with pure intention of ensuring that people are not coming next to their working places and are driven away from the city centers. So, Minister, these are the things that we must time and again when we deal with this department, never forget to mention, because people will think that it's easy to run this department. And I want to say from the AG's report, there are a number of improvements that we really need to applaud before we lament much on where we did not perform. But if we are not telling this good story, people will never know about this story. The first story that one wants to tell is the stabilized entities of the department. And once you've got the stable entities which have board members, permanent board members, they perform, and that has been achieved, and that we really need to applaud the department. Now, it has happened due to your stance that you took, Minister, to say no to any underperforming entity, because once it's not performing, it means it has lost its existent mandate, and therefore you said very clear that we are not going to have such entity because it's not fulfilling its mandate. Chairperson, the question one will answer, will pose is what space management will be applied in particular to those officials who sleep at work, who tend to deliberately neglect to pay the service providers within the stipulated time of 30 days. We are posing this question, comrade, because it was indicated by the AG's report, and especially one will understand that it has got a bearing of collapsing the SMMEs, and it has got a bearing of ensuring that we don't transform the economy. Another good story, Chairperson, is how we have performed very well on the monitoring and evaluation, comrades. We did very well. It's a good story that we must tell, comrades. Chairperson, in concluding, one will want to pose this big question that one will think it will cover a lot of questions that we came in bits and pieces. What is strategy, Minister, and the team you have in place to deal with the concern raised by the AG, or the concern came out of the report of the AG, especially on finances and targets? Thank you very much, Comrade.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chris. Just to add on the questions raised by members, taking from where Chris has left on the on the issues of Auditor General. One is that the DG has presented, as was presented, indicated that they've done very well in monitoring entities. But the finding of the Auditor General says that as you monitor, make inputs into these entities, what they must correct, what they must do, there is no evidence that shows that you follow up on the issues that you have requested the entities to address, that entities have addressed. Which one can attribute to why the entities have performed so poor? Because if you raise issues with them and then there's no follow-up from your side whether all the issues that you have raised are being implemented, and you then just say we have monitored 100%, it's a problem. Just need clarity in that comment, the comment of from the acting DG in terms of that. The other issue, Minister, you've raised a lot of commitment in trying to turn around some of the issues, particularly with the with the ASL, the coordinations amongst within the sector, and just want to check what is it that is going to be done better now, such that we can then improve coordination. Looking at some of the issues that we have done has not worked. What mechanism are we going to put in place in making sure that this coordination work? There is a DDM module which talks about one plan, one budget. How are we going to make it effective as human settlement? Because it will then address some of of the problem that it's encountered by the department. And the second issue being that you have indicated, Minister, that there is that engagement in the level of the MINMEC. But the question that I'm having is that, can't we elevate these issues to contractual or memorandum of understanding where people sign on these things? And I know that the MECs, they signed a contract with their premiers, but they get the money from yourselves, which is a contradiction on its own. Just to check, what is it that we're going to do it to make sure that these things work for the department, because we cannot continue to have provinces that take money to do certain things. There is the project in one municipality that we're told that the money for the project at Matfosana was used to pay officials. And the question would be, what has been done to deal with those areas? Just to the commitment from the department on what the Auditor General has found on the project. The Auditor General raised again the issue that in previous financial year, he visited some of the projects, raised issues with provinces and the department. They are still recurring. He visited those projects again. Nothing has been done. What is it that we're going to do to make sure that all the projects that Auditor General has visited, they get attention and they get concluded? And how best can we get the department to feedback on these issues of Auditor General without losing them through the quarterly reporting? Because we are meeting with the department on quarterly basis, but these issues that are raised by Auditor General, they are just being massaged, not highlighted in terms of how they get addressed. Can we get commitment that as we get the quarter's report from the acting DG and through yourself, Minister, that will get the department attending to all the issues that the Auditor General has raised? Just to add on the consequence management, we had interacted with the HDA on the 25th of June. And then we're saying, what is it that you're doing on the investigation on irregular expenditure. They indicated one of the things that they've said, they've done that, but there is a, they've won the official. A person who has committed a irregular expenditure, how does he get the sentence, the discipline that he get warned? Can we then be able to tighten up the system such that these things should not recur? Because majority of the things that have been raised by Auditor General are recurring things. And every now and then as we interact, there is an indication that they're being attended to, but you come at the end of the year, the same things come back. The issue of the title deed, I think we just have to see how best we commend the department, starting engagement with the other stakeholders like your Department of Rural Development. And we've met with the, as we had a meeting today again with the DPME. They are recommending that there should be a summit. And we just want to get your comment around that, because as a portfolio committee, we think it can take us a step forward. Thank you. Let me welcome you, Minister, to respond to the questions.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me allow the team to respond and then I'll come at the end.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I will request that we start the responses by the acting CFO, followed by DDG Atkinson, acting DDG Atkinson, Neville Cheney, and acting DDG Corporate Services. And I will cover the rest before Minister comes in. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, acting DG. Can I request that Paul flight the presentation so that I can respond? Most of the items are on the presentations. I'm going to start with the questions that were put by the Honorable Member Mukotu. Paul, is it possible that you can flight the presentation and you go to the audit outcome? Chairperson and members, I know that AG was meeting the committee this morning. Let me put on record, our financial statements are clean. So I don't know if Paul is putting or Paul has left the meeting. I wanted to go through the audit outcome. So our financial statements are clean. When we look at the Auditor General report, under paragraph 6, emphasis of matter, it says, I draw attention to the matter below. My opinion is not modified in respect of this matter. What matter are we talking about? The restatement of corresponding figures. So their opinion is not modified. Hence, the financial statements are clean. So we don't have a modification on the emphasis of matter. What I'm trying to say is there is no emphasis of matter. There's nothing that AG is saying, my opinion is modified. Then he listened to the restatement of corresponding figures. The AG says, my opinion is not modified. What AG is trying to do is to say, for the users of the, or for the readers of the AFs, of the annual financial statements, they need to know that in the notes 29.1.1, there was the restatement of the corresponding figures. There was an error. And honorable members and chair, this error was as a result of, yes, thank you. This error was as a result of our finance leases. So for the past 5 years, we have been capitalizing the finance leases instead of expensing them. And bearing in mind that for all the years that we as a department have been capitalizing these finance leases, AG has been auditing them. Until this year, that's when this error was picked up. Hence, AG is saying this is not modified because we have been capitalizing. AG has been auditing. We have been okay for the past 5 years. Hence, the error is saying that they are not modifications. So it's the finance leases. So we had to go back. So we wanted the users to see that we have restated the opening balances. These are the opening balances. It's for the financial year that ended on the 2021 March. So that responds to the error. So Honorable Mkotu, there is no emphasis of matter. The AG does not have, is not modified what they are putting on. And then what I wanted to talk about, can we go to the those round, no, not the matters of concern, go up on the first slides, whereby it is giving, yes, here. So here you can see that the quality of the submitted financial statement is green. So our financial statements are clean. And the arrow on the quality of submitted performance information, it is going up. This arrow is saying we have improved when it comes to the performance information, because throughout the years, we had a qualification, but this year we have an unqualified on the performance information. And then I'm going to the supply chain. You can see the arrow is going down on the supply chain. And then on the supply chain, it is talking to, can you go to the next slide? The one that is talking to the 2 items. I need to respond to the 2 items and the awards. The items of the compliance. So when AG is auditing, AG auditing the AFS that we are clean. Now, AG looks at the performance information. Then they are looking at the third leg, which is the compliance. Can we go to the next slide, please? They look at the compliance. Now, let us go to the compliance slide. When you look at the compliance, the regression, the next slide, the regression on the supply chain, the next slide, please. The regression is on the compliance. So AG is saying, the current year audit outcome is unqualified, with finding on only the findings that we are sitting with as a Department of Human Settlements is on compliance. So there were 2 findings that the AG is reflecting on, bearing in mind that as a department, we have picked up this 2.3 million. We have disclosed it on the AFS. Hence, our AFS are clean, because we did not have the material finding. Because if we didn't disclose, this irregular expenditure was picked up by the AG, we were going to have a material finding. Our AFS were not going to be clean. So we picked this irregular expenditure, we disclosed it. Then AG came back and said, hang on, 2.3 million is material. So we are going to flag it under compliance. Now, the acting DG has spoken on length about the 2.3 million. We did not, what we did as a department, we picked up this as a finance. When we picked up an irregular expenditure, immediately what we do an assessment. On the notes of the AFS, you can see that we are putting the irregular expenditures under assessment, because we are assessing them. Once we have assessed the 1.5 million that the acting DG has spoken about, once we have done an assessment, we took the file, we handed it over to the internal audit to do the determination test. The internal audit did a determination test and brought back the file and said, with the recommendations, we looked at the recommendations. I'm talking about consequence management on the irregular expenditure. We looked at the recommendations. The recommendations from the internal audit are clear that consequence management should be taken by the accounting officer on this official, and that official. So we took the file to the labor unit, because when you are dealing with employees, you need to follow the process. The labor, they've made a submission now to the accounting officer to say, we have received this from the internal audit on this irregular expenditure, and then you need to take consequence management. So we are towards the end leg, because unfortunately, the framework from National Treasury has got steps. You cannot jump to the consequence management. Before you do assessment, you do determination, you do investigations, then you come out with recommendations. The framework from National Treasury has got all these steps. So before we can do consequence management, we have ticked the boxes on the framework of irregular expenditure. So we are towards the last leg. Now, the second biggest irregular expenditure was on the interns, as the acting DG has elaborated. So what we did as finance, we went back and said, when you craft your terms of reference, especially when it comes to recruitment, because the HR, when they were doing their terms of reference, they thought that we are going to receive 10,000 applications. They requested the service provider to cost per application. Then we said, to mitigate this risk going forward, we are not going to request the service providers to cost us per application, because we found ourselves in this situation of the 562, because we thought with the interns, we are going to get 10,000. Unfortunately, we got 30,000. Hence, we are saying, we did the same. We did an assessment as finance. We took the file over to the internal audit. They did a determination. Now the process is at the third leg. We are waiting for the recommendations from the internal audit. Once we get the recommendations, then we are going to go to the next step. So, Honorable Chairperson, what we are doing and the steps that we have put in place as finance to mitigate the risks of the irregular expenditure. Can I go to the next slide that talks to the tenders, the awards? The next slide. The next one. Yes. So this is supply chain. No. Go back, please. The supply chain. Honorable Chairperson and members, can you go to the slide that you have just skipped? Supply chain. Thank you. The slide says 5 awards with a value of 13.5 were not published on the e-tender portal. The important section there is after the successful bidder had been awarded the tender. So there is no deviation. There is no irregular expenditure, because if we did not publish the tender itself on the e-portal, this 13.5 could have been sitting at the body of the AG report on the 2.3. So here we are saying we followed the correct procurement process for the tenders that worth 13.5 million. However, after we have finalized and awarded the tender to the successful bidder, what we are supposed, or what we are required to do by the prescripts, we need to go back on the e-portal and advertise who the tender was awarded to. So that is the steps that we did not do. However, there were times that the system crashed. We had letters from the National Treasury, because the e-tender portal is administered with National Treasury. So what we have learned and what we have put forward is, if the e-tender portal is not working, we need to look at the alternatives. That we can't sit as a department and say the e-tender has crashed, the e-tender is not working. We need to find ways of advertising the successful bidder. So, honorable member, there's no irregular expenditure. It's just that we did not, and then we are taking accountability for it. Hence, we are saying to mitigate this going forward, we are going to look at the other means. We can use our departmental internet, our departmental website. We can use the government bulletin, but we need to advertise it somewhere. Now, I'm going to the second part of the payments to services in advance. These payments that AG is talking about, as government, we were told that there was a CAP memo in the past that was saying all the government's department, when it comes to communication, we need to use GCIS, the government of communication, because it is their primary mandate, because they are dealing with all the communications. So, however, when you look at the Treasury regulation says we cannot make advance payment. So the practice was we will have a submission detailing all the services that we require from the GCIS. Then our accounting officer will sign, the accounting officer from the GCIS will sign. However, GCIS, they had a problem with departments not settling the payments within 30 days. So they were running bankrupt. Then they went back to Parliament and said, yes, we are doing communications for the whole government departments. However, they are not paying us within 30 days. Then they said, how about we introduce the advance payments? So the error that we made is the contractual obligation. When you look at 1510(1)(2)(c), it talks about a contractual obligation. What we should have done and what we are doing currently, we have now come up with an MOU. We went to our legal. For this financial year, we have not transferred anything for media buying, for communication to the GCIS. We said we need a contractual obligation. When we had a meeting with our audit committee, we were told that, in fact, an MOU is not a contractual obligation. You need to go back and look what is a contractual obligation. So that's where we are. For this financial year, there were no transfers. However, Honorable Chair and members, I need to highlight that the money that was transferred to GCIS was paid back to us during the month of April. Unfortunately, it was the beginning of the new financial year. So, Chairperson, I think I've covered a lot on that. However, I need to go. Can we go to the budgets and the expenditure, the 98%? Now, Honorable Chairperson and members, I'm going to respond to the 98% and the 2% that was not spent. I'm going to respond to Honorable Mukoto and Honorable Powell. When you look at the 2.1%, when I was presenting, I did indicate that the 720, can we go to the financials? The 720 consists of compensation of employees, goods and services, transfers, and the budget. So when we look towards the end of the presentation, when you look at the economic classification, the compensation of employees, the 720 comprises of the majority there, it goes to transfers and subsidies, over 50% goes to transfers. 474 million out of the 720 are transfers. The biggest contributor there is the emergency housing grants. Honorable members, the emergency housing grant is a separate schedule. You don't just transfer that grant. That grant is sitting as unallocated. It's not allocated. It's sitting on our board. It is waiting for a disaster. Bearing in mind that this report is for the financial year that ended on the 31st of March, 2022. The disasters that Honorable Powell was referring to, they happened on the new financial year. By the 31st of March, we closed our books. We cannot go back and tap to the unspent emergency housing grants that is sitting there, the 301 and the other one for the municipal emergency housing grant. Unfortunately, this, by the 31st of March, the books were closed. This money is going to sit there and it has to revert back. On the 1st of April, we received a new allocation. So the disasters for KZN, they were transferred on the Provincial Emergency Housing Grant for the financial year that started on the 1st of April, 2022. That's when we made the transfers. Unfortunately, for this financial year, that ended on the 31st of March, we had 301. We cannot release this money. When we look at the grant framework that is gazetted, it clearly states that there must be an application. There must be an agreement by the MEC or the mayor that there is a housing emergency or a mayor or a disaster. So if we are not getting any applications, unfortunately, we cannot allocate a Schedule 7 grant. This grant is the same as the COCTA disaster covered grants. So they are classified the same. They're sitting there waiting for a disaster or waiting. Our one is wait also for the housing emergency. So that's why the 720 is not spent. Now, let us go back. Can you go to the economic classification? I need to explain the other contributors. The other contributors, as I said, on the goods and services. Chairperson and members, COVID has taught us that there are new ways of doing business. For example, before COVID, today, we could have the whole team that is connecting from Gauteng, from the National Department, we could have traveled to Cape Town, to Parliament. However, because of COVID, we have learned that we can connect via Zoom, via Teams. So hence I said when I was presenting the financials that on goods and services, on the traveling, it's a savings rather than an under expenditure. Because we couldn't justify that for the year under review that ended on the 31st of March, 2022, that we have exhausted our travel and subsistence. Whereas we know that most of our meetings were on Zoom. So we cannot justify that we are gonna exhaust our budget for the travel and existence and subsistence. The same as the office suppliers printing. We know that when we are at the office, we are using the telephones. We are using all the other things at the office, printing paper and doing all those kinds of things. But because now we are more working from home, because by the 31st of March, I think we were already sitting at 75% as per the DBSA. We were not 100% as in 100% returning to the office. So for this financial year, that's where we need to see an improvement, because now we are going back to the 100% return to the office. So most of these expenditures, they were caused by that. Hence, I said, when I was presenting on the economic classification, especially on the goods and services, that let us look at it as if it is a saving. It's not an under expenditure per se. Now, when you look at the payments for capital assets, it's sitting there, it's contributing as well. Now, I indicated that due to COVID, the first year of COVID, we started buying laptops. Then we sat down and said, we are buying laptops for the employees to work at home. After buying laptops, we need to give them data, because now we cannot expect someone with a laptop not having a data. However, the service providers, Vodacom, MTN, Telkom, they started now, because of this concept of working from home, they introduced the data contracts, whereby you are able, with 800 Rand, you can get an HP laptop together with the data from Vodacom or Telkom or MTN. So instead of incurring double the expenditure, as a department, we opted for review of our cell phone policy to increase the data sponsorship, so that working from home, it is easy. With that data sponsorship, you are able to go to Vodacom, MTN, and Telkom. You are able to get a data contract. We are going to spend, as a department, give you 1.2. Out of that 1.2 thousand, you are able to get a Dell laptop together with the data. It's going to enable you to connect from home and work effectively. So hence I'm saying, most of the decisions that were taken, as I'm saying, is not more of the under expenditure, it's more of the savings, especially when it comes to the goods and services. On the compensation of employees, I'm going to allow my DDG from the corporate services to talk to the structure, because it is a contributory factor when it comes to the under expenditure on that. I think I've covered all the questions that were asked by Honorable Mukoti. I'm going to go to, sorry, Honorable Mukotu, I'm going to go to the Honorable Farrell. Now, let's go to the Hsdg. Now, this slide that we're depicting here, I'm going to respond together with the questions from Honorable Hsdg. When we look at the Hsdg, the financial year of the municipalities, can we move to the Hsdg, please? The financial year of the municipalities, it ends on the 30 June 2022. Hsdg, Urban Settlement Development Grant. Now, by that, by end of our financial year, by end of the financial year of the National Department, we have transferred the 7.4. Can we go to the slide that talks to the Urban Settlement Development Grant? This is human. Can you go to the other one? The other one? The next one? Thank you. So the financial year of the metros, it ends on the 30th of June. However, when you look at what we are disclosing the expenditure as of the 31st of March, 2022. So these metros, we have transferred 7.4 billion. However, the expenditure was sitting at 55.6. These metros, they had 3 more months, April, May, June, before their financial year ends, to spend the 3.3 billion, the remainder. Sorry. However, I did indicate that municipalities, when you look at the accounting, they are working on the accrual basis of accounting. The accrual basis of accounting, it allows the metros to process the late invoices until the 31st of August, when they submit their final figures to Auditor General together with National Treasury. For the past month, we were busy, Honorable Say, we were busy finalizing the complete picture. When we come for the first quarter presentation, we will bring, because National Treasury has done it, the Minister of Finance is going to talk about it during the midterm budget adjustment. So we will have the final figures, but this that we are putting here is not the final, it's the 31st of March, which is our financial year. It's not the financial year of the metros. Now, the Sea Point building. The Sea Point building, by the 31st of March, we haven't transferred to this. We, as a National Department of Human Settlements, we are working on the modified cash basis of accounting. You cannot accrue. Once is the 31st of March, bus closes, the system closes. You cannot process anything. So the only thing that we can do as a National Department of Human Settlements with the unspent money is to submit a rollover application to National Treasury. We did that because Hsdg, they submitted all the documents that we needed. Then they requested the 51.5. Then we said to them, unfortunately, we are now in the new year because this money was by the 31st of March is sitting as unspent for the financial year that ended on the 31st of March, 2022. So we couldn't transfer it on the new year because we had to wait for the National Treasury to approve the rollover. I have received a letter from National Treasury. Our rollover has been declined. So those are not the good news. And I think I've covered most of the questions. Yes, I think I've covered all of the questions, Acting DG, that were directed to me. Unless if I've left something, I've got Team Finance is here with me. They will chip in and assist me. Thank you so much. Mr. Mbengo and Zui, if I've missed something, can you colleagues be able to respond to it? Thank you.
No, we are fine, Ms. B.
Okay, thank you, Acting DG. I think we have covered everything from finance. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, and good afternoon, members. Chair, my name is Rashni Atkinson. I'm currently acting DDG for Research Policy, Strategy and Planning. Chair, I want to deal with the questions around the housing programs, as well as the Paulette and the land rezoning. Chair, in response to Honorable Brett Heron, the current housing programs, we agree there is a need for the total overhaul of some of our policies and programs. And yes, there's been delays in being able to process that. Paulette's contract ended last year, 2021, but prior to that, there was the COVID that affected a number of the departmental processing of policies, but the panel members of the Paulette were also drawn into some of these interventions that the department had to undertake in response to the COVID pandemic. So that caused slight delays. However, Chair, there was a number of policies and frameworks and position papers that were developed by Paulette during the period of 2018 and 2021. And I think this list of policies and position papers and frameworks were availed to the colleagues, but we can obviously make that available. I just don't have the list here. But I think to date, it included the Land Assembly Framework for Human Settlements that was developed in 2020, the upgrading policy, informal settlements upgrading policy in 2021, the macro policy for social and rental housing, the Human Settlements Ombudsman's policy framework, the community schemes ombudsman's services policy, and a number of other policy documents. Chair, as we're speaking now, the Paulette has been appointed last week. We, in fact, currently finalizing and agreeing with them in terms of what policies have to be reviewed and what position papers and frameworks have to be developed. All of these things have to go through a process of consultation, of course, with the policy task team. It's subjected to the CS process at the DPME. So we have to also respect those processes, that if there's any need to relook at some of the work we've done, we also then have to undertake that. So maybe to indicate, we're still committed to that process of ensuring that we are reviewing our policies and programs to respond better to the way we are delivering services, but also faster. I think that up until now, our policies and programs have been able to deliver what we have been able to deliver, which I think has been significant achievements. But there's, of course, loopholes in the process of delivery that we've found, and we still remain committed to ensuring that we are strengthening what we have. So that's the issue on the Paulette and the policy programs. On the land rezoning target, Chair, this target is a very important target, and perhaps the member indicated removing this from the MTSF target or framework. I'm not sure what that's going to achieve, because I think there's a bigger problem that we need to address, and it's about how we are processing township applications. And when I say we, I mean a collective, not just public sector, but also private sector role players in the process of finalizing township establishments. So I'm not sure what it's going to do if we're going to remove that, because there's still a lot that land is one of the major triggers for us to be able to achieve our outcome of spatial transformation and consolidation, specifically in the cities and towns. Now, if we are not going to get our township establishment processes right, and the land rezoning applications and all of the inputs that go into it, I don't know that by delaying we're going to get any further. But there's interventions that we've been taking with the Hsdg to ensure that we are moving fast on this target. I think, and we definitely have to ensure that we meet this target before the MTSF period. If we look at where this target originated from, it's the land rezone or the land acquired between the period 2014 and 2019 through the Hsdg grant, facilitated by especially the Hsdg, that has to be rezoned. So that was the basis of this particular target being identified. And if we want to ensure that we are going to make use of what we've already spent on land acquisition, and we bring value into the housing delivery value chain in terms of these rezoning applications, then we can't let this target go. It's an important target for us to achieve. We have engaged with rural development because they are primarily the custodian of the SPLUMA Act. And one of the things that we've discovered with them is that, or through them, is that there are special provisions within the SPLUMA that allow us to support the municipalities to fast track these applications. One of it is for us as a national department to sit as a representative in the tribunals. And there's a number of ways that as our participation in those tribunals, we can support the municipality to fast track these various township, these various rezoning applications. The other way is that We also have been asked to relook at the list of land that has been acquired in that period, and to prioritize those land parcels, especially those that exist within towns and cities where there's already existing infrastructure. Now, what that does is, because there's already existing infrastructure, there's already a township proclaimed, it then becomes easier to apply for a rezoning application. Whereas if you're dealing with just vacant land and that's not suitably located, it takes a longer process in terms of rezoning that land. So there's various areas that we've identified with rural development in this past 2 weeks that we think is going to help us achieve this target. And if not, it must be able to help us at least review the township establishment process as well as the rezoning application process. I think one of the questions we were asked during the meetings with municipalities was, how is it that township applications is fast-tracked or happens faster for private sector developers, but when it's public sector or municipalities or municipalities trying to drive development and wanting to rezone land, provinces wanting to rezone land, the Hsdg, it takes longer. So there's a need to really understand how are the various stakeholders playing up their part within this value chain or within this delivery chain, and what is it that we can, as a national department, by participating in those tribunals, assist to fast track. On the spending of the PDA development plans, Chair, that plans we are not funding as the national department. It is the 47 plans were achieved in the last financial year, were funded through the provinces, and most of them were project managed by the Hsdg. So a lot of those plans, actually all of those plans are funded by the provinces and the municipalities. Chair, I think I've addressed the land rezoning and the questions that related to the Paulette and the housing programs. Thanks, Chair.
Afternoon, Honorable Chair, Honorable members, Minister, Acting DG and colleagues. Chair, I'll address the issue around the question of the title deeds and just indicate, yes, the target and the performance of the provinces has been dismal. And what have we done, or what are we doing as the national department to address this? So during the course of this financial year, within the last 3 months, as the national department, we're undertaking what we would call a pilot, where as the national department, we're picking up the slack that the provinces or 2 provinces have not been able to deal with. Here we're talking about the Mabopane, Winterveld, and the Garankuwa area, where there's approximately 11,000 title deeds that's there. It's almost 20 years, pre-94, nothing's happened. With the ministers issued a directive that this will now be a ministerial priority, which now means that as the national department, we're taking over that, and we are going to undertake the process of registering those title deeds. And that will lay the basis for us to be able to then pick up that slack, because I think we are then be able to demonstrate that in terms of regulatory and compliance, that actually, as the national department, we act in the best interest of the citizens, and that's what ministers done here. It arose from a situation where there was a substantial amount of tension. It could have led to violence and some of these things. So it gives us the impetus, it gives us the minister the impetus to be able to say, I'm taking this over, and that in terms of legal and compliance issues, we don't find ourselves wanting, given the concurrency. So that's the first part. So that's the first part in a process of clawback of some of the functions where a province demonstrates that it is unable to undertake that, and that's what we've done. The second part is that And there's a slide that we have, and if I get permission, I can just flight it. It's just one. We have segmented what this backlog consists of: deceased estates, family disputes, townships not opened, title deeds not distributed, title deeds not registered. Those are the 5 primary categories. And what we have now done is, again, through the office of the minister, we've signed this off as a target together with one of the entities, the HDA, for us to then undertake the township establishment for 498 townships. I repeat that there are 498 townships in and around the country that have not been, thanks Paul, that have not been opened. If we open those 498 townships, we will allow approximately 400,000 title deeds to be registered. So it's eating this elephant one bit at a time. So yeah, you'll see that those are the 6 areas where we are focusing on them. The 4th and the 5th, ministers in the process of dealing with the issue around the question of deceased estates, because one of the blockages that households pick up is that when they go to the master of the Supreme Court, they get shoved from pillar to post. There's inconsistency in how a estate must be registered, and we must be clear. Given the fact that you are dealing with households that are poor, they do this themselves. We have instances where in the same master's office, households are given different requirements to fulfill. They then have to it takes in certain instances, it takes up to a year for a household to open up a deceased estate to be settled and to resolve these disputes. So we've asked for Minister to then discuss with the Minister of Justice to set up that team to allow us to be able to do that. So those are just 2 instances, concrete instances, that we've left the talk behind and we've resolved that. So that's on the title deeds. On the issue around the question of the monitoring, there's a couple of things that have occurred in the last year of Minister's office. The first one is that we now have a situation where there's ministerial sign-off of business plans at the national sphere. It never happened before. And the problem that you had is that you have MEC signing off business plans, but the minister not seeing them, not being able to account for them, and it was a flaw in the system. So what do we have now? In each instance where a business plan for any one of the grants is finalized, ministers had a meeting with each of the MECs, with all of the mayors, confirmed the correctness and the implementability of those business plans, and we signed that off. We can provide those minutes. So there's an accountability mechanism here. The second part around that is that we've then standardized all of the indicators. So in the past, we didn't have standardized indicators. We now, together with DPME, have got standardized indicators. So as the national department, you will find those indicators in our APP and our strat plan, but you will also find it in each of the provinces. This allows us to then undertake the oversight role and the reporting role that's been raised by members, that we do these things, but we don't follow up. We also, as part of that reporting and monitoring, there's a validation process for each of the indicators. In fact, I think once we've had the report submitted to minister, there will be the Q1 for this financial year and members will then see a concrete result of how we are intensively monitoring, evaluating, and reporting, and holding provinces accountable for what they say. And where there are discrepancies, they must then answer those. And if they don't answer that, then there's a consequence in terms of audit findings around that. We've done that for 13 indicators, and that it will yield the resultant accountability, because it then ensures that they are able to resolve that. I think on the point that Member Czech is indicated, we are in dead center of the 5 year of 2.5 years of the 5 year, and I think we did indicate to the AG that in relation to the house construction as well as the service sites, there is a lag on the service sites, but on the houses constructed, we should be at 50%, and the delivery is at 50%. However, the one issue that we've always indicated is that yes, the money does get expended, but some of that money, not all of it, goes into house construction or servicing of the site. A lot of it goes into planning. We've also put the brakes on that with respect to ensuring that provinces must demonstrate that planning translates into a house, translates into a service site. I'm just checking where I've not. Oh, yes, on the issue around the question of the acquisition of the Sea Point, yes, that building, notwithstanding the financial issues that the acting CFO has done, the HDA will confirm or are able to confirm that the Sea Point building has been acquired, and they used internal funding, which they were able to allow to procure that building, because the SABC had put pressure on them to be able to do that. I think, Minister, Acting DG, Chair, I've covered those points that are within my ambit. Thanks. Thank you.
Good afternoon. This is Zoleka Sokopo. I am going to be talking about informal settlements upgrading. Good afternoon, Chairperson, Minister, and the members. There was a question that was asked about the indicator. Why is it that we have not changed this indicator, while knowing that the informal settlements upgrading is multi-year, and we have adopted through our program a incremental approach? Yes, we have done that. For the 2022-2023 financial year, we have changed the indicator to reflect exactly what a national department does. So we focus more on supporting of implementation, issues around planning, supporting the planning of with regard to informal settlements upgrading, as well as also ensure then that we do project level monitoring and report on that. Because we also don't want to lose this knowledge about the numbers that we now have about how many informal settlements that are in different phases of upgrading, we still collect that information, but it will not be reflected as such in the indicator, but as part of our monitoring report. As a result of all of this, I think the report itself indicates a number of informal settlements that are in various phases of upgrading, such that then already we know that those that are in phase 3, we have already 307 that over the next year or two, we will know that they are, or they would have all the necessary they would have met all the necessary requirements to get out of phase 3, because they have one aspect. Maybe some will have water and sanitation facilities and not have electricity, and they are now waiting for all the other 3 aspects of the site development that is there. Also, we are tracking the pipeline from phase 1 to phase 2, that we have that pipeline, and we are tracking that also in the 2022 and 23. So that is one of the areas that we have made changes on. So yes, so the long and short, yes, we have done the changes as the member has suggested. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Members, Minister, DG and colleagues. It's Matopi Tusi. I will be responding on the HR questions that were posed by the members. On the organizational structure, yes, we agree, Honorable Members, that it has taken us long to conclude this process. Mainly because the macro structure, which is at managerial level, was approved and implemented, and we're given time to finalize the structure at the other levels that are non-managerial or SMS, and that caused the delays. But this is a priority for everyone, for the minister, for management in the department, and we are anticipating that we will conclude this process soon, because we want to align the structures, both the macro, the micro, and the budget structure, so that we are all able to function properly. So it's a priority project for us. And then in terms of the acting positions, at 31 March, we had 12 officials that are acting, honorable members, but these positions that they are acting on, the recruitment processes have already started, and I believe even in the minister's opening remarks, some of those positions we are at an advanced stage in terms of filling them. Others are at different stages of filling them, but we are ensuring that we limit now the issue of the acting periods, to ensure that we don't leave officials acting for longer periods. We ensure that when a request for acting is submitted, we also insist on the documentation that starts the process of recruitment and selection, to ensure that when an official starts acting, we also start with the recruitment process, so that we are able to finalize the filling of the post autonomously. And then when it comes to the issues of the contracts that have terminated as at 31 March, the 72 number that the honorable member has asked about, those 36 of that number were interns. We appoint them on PESAL, and they reflect as contracts, because we appoint them for a period of 2 years or 24 months in terms of the directive from the TPSA. So as their internship comes to an end or expires, it appears as the contract expiring. And the other contracts that expires is when the ministers terms of office are expire also. We have to give the officials in the ministry the 1 month notice that they serve, and that is also regarded as contract expiring. So the others are the task teams that are established to come and do work for the department. As the work is finished, those contracts will also expire. And then in terms of the suspension, honorable member, it was one official that was suspended, but that suspension has since been lifted. The official is back in the department, but it doesn't mean that the case has been finalized. The case is still ongoing because of the technicalities, the postponements, the issues that come with the hearings. So you will have postponements, you'll have technical issues that are raised in the hearing. So that is leading to the case taking longer to finalize, but the case is still ongoing. There are dates that have been given, that have been scheduled for this case, even in this month, honorable members. And I believe those were the questions that were HR related. Thank you, Bishop.
And thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Let me just conclude on the consequence management of 1.5. As we indicated, the process is towards the end. Now, the only leg that is left there is the implementation of consequence management by the supervisor. Let me assure the committee that that will be done by the end of this month because the supervisor is on leave at present. Consequence management also, I would like to link it to the question of Honorable Malimaja in terms of many of the officials that are caught sleeping on duty, because that also results to poor management, that we will continue to implement the consequence management where it is appropriate to do so. I want to add just briefly on the service sites, linking them to the title deeds and restoration program, that MINMEC has since approved that when service sites are issued to the beneficiaries, the process of title deeds should commence immediately, so that by the time even the house is being handed over, it gets handed over together with the title deed, because in any way, the title deeds is linked to the sites, not necessarily on the four walls. Chairperson, the monitoring that we indicated that was done, but there are some follow-ups that we need to do. We do the follow-ups, but they have not yielded the required results. And we do take note of the inputs of the Honorable Chairperson, also in terms of us reporting on the poor projects that were delivered as highlighted by the AG on our reports, on quarterly reports that we will be presenting to the portfolio committee. Excuse me. The lack of coordination in the sector, Honorable Chairperson, one of the remedies here is that we need to start the planning process quite early, because our sector is quite complex and it's very huge, so that we must be able to align all our processes correctly, and also that the projects are ready to take off in the next financial year. Also, this also requires the improvement in the IGR, as also highlighted by Honorable Tafeni, that we need to improve on the IGR, also enhance through the DDM, the implementation of the DDM, because the performance of this sector can never be done by the department nor its entities. You need almost everyone in order to deliver on human settlements and portfolio. Honorable Chairperson, the issue of the strategy in terms of dealing with the AG findings, let me just add that as a department, we do consolidate all the AG findings. Acting CFO runs that portfolio, and we allocate all the roles and responsibilities, and we manage that process on monthly basis. And also we do have a steering committee that also where our colleagues in the office of the AG, they are part and parcel of that steering committee in order for us to address the AG findings that have been identified in the past. I think, Honorable Chairperson, I have covered the questions that were raised. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. As I wrap up, there were quite a number of issues that were raised that I said I'll come to the end. The first one, I think...
sorry, Minister Chairperson, can I just interject if you allow?
Yes, Honorable Tseki.
With the acting DG chair, which is a principle and a fact that this is what we want to see, that when someone gets into the house, get with a title deed. The DG is saying that's what is happening. Is it what is active today, or is it a wish that that should happen? Because we know that the DG...
No, it's a follow-up question, Honorable Tseki. If you want to raise a follow-up question, let's allow the minister to respond, and then you then come if there is a follow-up question, and because it will be, even other members might have that follow-up question. Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chair. The first thing I want to highlight, it's in terms of, yes, I did acknowledge the report by the AG, as members have reflected in the discussions. But the percentage of performance wages, and that's why I spoke in the manner that we did. And I note that, for example, one of the things out of an audit report, we'll have to do an action plan list that will have to come back regularly as we do our quarterly reporting, report that included. I think we started when we did the reporting as well. And we do that even with the entities that they must include the quarterly reporting of the AG's action plan list so that we can track what is happening. So on the issue around the Director General, I think I've been able to explain members in terms of the issues that relates to that and where the process is. Suffice to say that one would want to be cautious not to deal with labor matters in a public domain, because then that's how it prejudices government. We find that then later as a minister, you have breached the process. I don't want to find myself that. And I think once the process have been completed, and even in terms of level of authority, there are things that I can't respond to, because you'd remember that the appointment or the dismissal of a Director General is not the responsibility of the minister. It's the responsibility in terms of law by the president. It's not a delegated responsibility. Now, I do not want to speak on a matter that I do not have authority over to speak for. That's the first thing. The second issue around assurances in the entities. One, in terms of the work that the minister does, what is expected of me is that I'm expected to be able to put together, ensure that in terms of corporate governance, I can be able to ensure that there is a board. I can be able to ensure that there's executives there, and the accounting authority, which is the board, accounts regularly. Now, as I said, we've appointed the board. We've put in place what needs to be done. We regularly meet quarterly to say there's a need for improvement of performance. Recently, I just addressed all their strat plans, gave feedback. For example, I was even saying to Shra as an example that since I arrived, I've not received even a single request from Shra to say we are ready to open a product or a facility that has been concluded by Shra. So you notice that there is that engagement with the entity, there is that engagement with the board, but also because we've got to be able to try and balance, because tomorrow it will be said that the minister is encroaching. So I must be able to allow the accounting authority to exercise their authority to be able to do oversight. I am comfortable currently looking at what the boards are doing and our interaction, that they seem to be coming back on the right track. There was a bit of concern in terms of turnaround on, and as I say, on Shra. On Hsdg, yes, there's quite a number of things that still worry us, but there are some level of improvement in terms of relations with the work that they do in the provinces. The notion of them having to forget that or be reminded regularly that they are not banks to keep money for provinces. But similarly, even clarification of the mandate, because some would talk about a primary mandate and a secondary. And when you look at the act, there's no such. There's one mandate of the Hsdg, though broken down in various parts of it. So that's one of the things that we had to be able to. We've asked even, for example, at NHPRC that let's rebuild the skills. Let's try and improve on services. NHFC, the same thing. There's work that is being done there. So there's quite an improvement. Obviously, with the suspension of the CO and PPRA, it does affect. I still get a lot of issues. For example, CISOs and PPRA, I still get a lot of emails from stakeholders that are complaining about this and that. And part of paying attention in those areas is to be able to say, experiences of our customers, experiences of the people that we serve. That's what helps us in terms of ensuring that we can do. So like I've done with the Auditor General, I've committed to concluding the matters around the review of the grant system to be able to assist us to perform better. That's one. Number two, I've committed to consistent oversight, even from my side as the executive authority, in terms of provinces. For example, we have a MINMEC this month specifically to focus on performance. We are doing that, which is important, that we are paying attention to the performances, but also holding each other accountable. I think one of the members captured it very well to say, I think it's you, Chair, that you said that, for example, we are the transferring, the performance sits with us, but the performance agreement get to be signed between the MECs and the premiers. Not only that, including how the money is spent. We currently do not have much of the say. So you can only go into the budget and the business plans, and then once they decide, if they go outside, then it's a matter that is a long process. And then you still have to go to Treasury to ask for permission for this. And that's why we are requesting a review of the grant system so that it allows us to be able to hold them accountable in the manner that is expected of us, while respecting the separation of powers that exists. So that is consistent. When you look at my performance agreement with the president, you'll see all these issues are there, but the delivering point or the implementation point is at some point. But we do review, we are currently reviewing quite a number of things. For example, the issue of beneficiary list, as much as it's done in the provinces and all that in the municipalities, we do feel that the digitization of it is important. And that's why centralizing that and making sure that it happens properly, it will be important. The issue around disaster management, because even one of the things that we battle with is that in a municipality, when a disaster has happened, that municipality must apply for the emergency funding. Now you find that they don't even know that they must apply. They don't even know how to apply. And then you must sit, and this is across municipalities, whether it's metros, whether it's local, you find the same experience. Now, part of the issue as well, the team had to run workshops in just orientating people on what needs to be done in running the issues. And maybe just to go into the issues again of title deeds. Chair, I don't want us to lie and mislead Parliament. We are not doing well on the title deeds. The performance of title deeds can improve drastically. I do believe so. We have now tested, we're trying to test the system, for example, on the old stock, with a Mawika, what we can call a ministerial pilot, where I've taken over that, we are dealing with that, unlocking those title deeds, and to be able to see how best we can do. The ideal situation is such that if we register a person to move into a house, that person must move with the title deed. The current situation is that you understand that there was a change between the previous work, where you initially had, as you have a database of people, as you allocate people to, as you start the project, you allocate people to that project, and then they have the houses. But what has been the issue is that with the blocked projects, then you find people sitting for a long time waiting for the house, but the house being said that is allocated. Now it was changed that as the projects are concluded, then an allocation happens. Now it delays in the registration of the title deeds. And that's what we're currently dealing with. But some of this work, honorable members, it says we need to review. But I think the other issue is around stability of our portfolio in terms of leadership, but having the right people with the right skills, but also who are committed to working. And I believe that we'll be able to do a lot of work. My concern currently and my fears are in relation to municipalities, especially the metros, with the coalition governments that are every time changing, which means that their priorities will change. They will change in how they do things. You have new people regularly, meaning that you must teach them what needs to be done. You must teach them the framework of the grant, because without leadership, you do not have a level of oversight that you want in these municipalities. And that's why consistently we're engaging with them so that we can finalize this. So that's what I thought I should highlight, Chair, on overview of the issues that have been raised.
Thank you very much, Minister. Can I sit for those that wants to speak on follow-ups? Honorable Hsdg, Honorable Brett, Honorable Mahoto, Honorable Harold.
Now, Chair, on my side, I think the Minister clarified, because the acting DG was talking as if it is factual now, it is happening now. But I think the Minister has explained that it's the wish that it could happen. So I'm fine with the answer of the Minister. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Mahoto. Honorable Mahoto. Is it the legacy hands, Honorable Mahoto?
The legacy, and I will just drop it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Honorable Harold.
Thanks, Chair, and thank you to all the officials for the replies. I don't think that the question I asked around the Hsdg was answered. The CFO answered as if I was questioning the USDG. I was asking about the 100% expenditure, or claim that 100% was spent on Hsdg by 3 provinces, and whether that was a realistic figure, given the discrepancies according to the answers to questions I got when I was still in the provincial legislature in the Western Cape, between the amount of units delivered in terms of completed houses and service sites using Hsdg. So the Western Cape I use as an example because I was there. They were allocated 1.577 billion, and they claim 100% spend of it. But the numbers of units that were supposed to be delivered, as reported by the department, is less than what 1.577 was the target in the business plan for the province. So are those 3 provinces that have reported 100% spend in the Hsdg, is that an accurate reporting? Thank you.
Hello, Acting Chief, do you want to speak to what Honorable Harold said?
Yes, Honorable Chairperson, Acting CFO will respond.
Thank you, Acting DG. Sorry, Honorable Harold, I missed that question. Okay, so the Hsdg, it does not buy only the sites and units. So we need to go back and look what did the province spend the 1.7 billion on. Number 1. Number 2, we need to look at the work in progress, because most of the time there are units that are still classified as the work in progress. So there is a possibility, or there is a reality of spending 100% on the Hsdg, even if they didn't deliver 100%, but some units are still regarded as work in progress. Because most of the time when we report on the Hsdg, we report on all the programs. There is, for example, 5% of the Hsdg, of the 1.7 billion for the Western Cape, was utilized for OPSCAP to procure capacity. So when you look at the 1.7, 5% was not to be utilized for the units and sites and sites. 5% was to procure capacity, and it is allowed on the Hsdg grant framework. Number 2, you'll find that there are other programs, because when you look at the housing code, the Hsdg procures a lot of programs. So we need to go back on Honorable Heron and look at what exactly was the 1.7 billion utilized for. We will be able to submit that particular report, because most of the time you will find that there are other programs that were on the business plan that the province has budgeted for. So we need to drill down on that, as well as looking at the work in progress, the work that the expenditure on the 1.7 billion has gone on. However, the final units are not taken by end of the financial year. So there is a lot of contributing factors that will make the 100% expenditure, whereas we don't have the 100% on the sites and units. So we have to go back and look at that report and submit to the honorable member. I don't know if I've covered that as well, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Acting CFO. DG, you are fine?
I'm covered, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, honorable members. That was the interaction on that we have with the department, and we welcome the commitment that has been made by the department to make sure that issues that are raised by Auditor General cannot be the sideways and cannot continue to have repeated findings. I think let's strengthen that part and make sure that even entities or provinces, they be monitored around those issues, so that there is a progress. We have to go at the level where we get clean audit, but we're stuck in unqualified with issues. We have to move towards a clean audit. Thank you very much. We'll meet on Friday as we start interacting with the entities. Thank you very much, Minister, and your team.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, honorable members.
The meeting is then adjourned.
Recording